Mike, I imagine you're pretty pleased with all the different ways that you won that ball game in the middle innings.
I couldn't have been more pleased with the whole game, really. I mean, it was almost an unblemished game. You know, a little hiccup in the ninth. But yeah, man, everything on display today. You know, usually starts on the hill. Dylan was fantastic. Recovered from a longer first inning, 28 pitches, able to sit at 90 and go to our bullpen from there. But a lot of good baseball. Toddy set the tone. Just really loved this game today. You know, the hustle double, the competitiveness at third base, always hunting the ball in the dirt. Probably a little bit less than a coin flip, but thought about maybe taking home, which would be awesome one day. I think he'll probably do it again. Maybe not there with the right spot, but Laureano, fantastic. You know, using the whole field and, you know, obviously the opposite field homer for me, and using the small game. Then using the opposite field approach, again, back up arcading. Doesn't mean we can't hit balls to the ballpark. Laureano clearly did it. Strong guy. But I really like Vermeen's at bats as well, and, you know, Hearn got his knock as well. And then Crony, of course, you know, got us started. We just couldn't quite get him to cave early on, and finally we knocked the door down a little bit and went from there.
You mentioned Cease. You can work with that version of Dylan, I imagine. What did you see besides, you know, he's mixing things up a little bit more? What did you see?
A little bit more sweeper and slider, fastball. You know, my first observation early on was fastball in to righties a little bit more, so that opens things up for him. And again, the first inning, longer inning, you know, still punches out the side, but 28 pitches, and then you saw him go into really the best version of Dylan the second through the fifth.
Well, what does that version of Dylan mean for kind of how scary your rotation can be with getting some guys back and some guys you've added?
Very scary. You know, it's very encouraging. We're very excited. You know, Darvish is building off his 7 innings. Nick's been great. You know, Michael, from what I understand, was good today in his rehab. You know, 31 pitches, so we'll see what that looks like, if I got that correct. And Dylan was tremendous today. And, you know, like I said, it looks like the second through the fifth where it's, you know, really crisp, controlling counts, closer misses. You know, he can get his strikeouts. Let's just do it in 5 pitches, 4 pitches. You know, a couple early 2-pitch outs. You know, that version is the 6-7, and we are going to need 6 and 7 innings from our starters, you know, occasionally. That's going to be important as well.
Mike, we've seen Jackson Merrill kind of have a sophomore slump at times earlier this year, but now he's really come back. 11 runs driven in the last 7 games. What have you seen from him to be able to come up in these big spots?
Yeah, I mean, Jackson's just a good player, right? And started off where he left off last year. As we know, got sidetracked a couple different times, actually came back from the hamstring in a really good spot, and you know, went through a stretch there for a couple weeks where you know, the game is the game. You know, it's going to get you at some point occasionally, and but great players is just that, is very occasionally. And talked about it during it, had full confidence in it, that what was going to happen is happening now. Jackson's a good player. You know, he's a winner. He's got a heart of a lion. He's got, you know, the championship pedigree and his mentality and the way he approaches it. And most importantly, Jackson is, beyond being a great player, Jackson's a team player. Jackson cares about the Padres. So when you have that mindset and you just want to win, yeah, you want to contribute with the bat, which clearly did today. That was a big 3-run triple today. You know, big 2-run single a couple of days ago. Big solo homer yesterday. But he also went out and dropped homers and thrown people out on bases and made web gems and ran the base as well, and continued to be a good guy that we can count on to talk in the game, before the game, about competition. So, you know, he helps us win regardless how he's doing.
You know, for a guy that's been around for so long like Jake Cronenworth, this is only his 17th game ever where he's batted 8th in the lineup. Is there any sort of different approach that a guy like that has to take when it's something he's not really used to at the bottom?
I can't answer for Jake. He can give you a better answer, you know, himself. But you know, the one thing about Jake is Jake's just going to take a tough at bat and do what the game calls for. You know, Toddy says that, and it's one of our mantras. And Jake has a feel for what that looks like. You know, Jake had, I think, 84 RBIs for us last year, hitting more towards the middle. And then as we went and Jackson progressed, you know, he was a good teammate and went to to the middle to the bottom. Right now, we got a really good lineup that I like a lot. You know, you got an all-star in Ahern that's, you know, hitting 6. Oriano's, you know, been able to hit righties and lefties, and, you know, it just slots in a little more balance to the lineup, you know, where guys can't come in and there's not really a comfortable lane for anybody. And it's, at the moment, it suits Jake at 8. And, you know, but Jake's going to take good at-bats and win regardless of where you put him.
And we saw Joe Musgrove finally get the first bullpen. You know, what was kind of the reaction to him going out there and going today?
Yeah, what a nice sight. You know, I didn't want to. There's a lot of rightfully a lot of crowd there, and you know, I want to support Joe, and Joe knows that. I stay out of the bullpen. That's the pitchers and Ruben and Fritzy and the pitching group's domain. But I went out and saw him play catch, and you know, I timed my walk appropriately. I walk around and I could see his beak a little bit, and he looked very aggressive. Everything looked clean. Nothing was forced, and it seemed like everything was, you know, coming out very, very clean. The arm was working, and the body language was really good, and he recovered well. So it's encouraging, but you know, it's a really big step, you know, to get on that slab and get the catcher down and throw 15 pitches. There's more steps to go.
Anyone else?
Yeah, it is.
Going into the trade market, how much did you want home run production to go up for your team?
I think you're always looking for home run production to increase, but you're really just looking for winning players. You know, I didn't. What anything I said like, man, home run production. You know, winning players is where we pound the table, and we just received them. These guys, no particular order: Miller, Sears, who's going to pitch tomorrow night. You know, Laureano, Ahern, Fermin. You know, now we got Cortez in the mix. These are winning guys. You know, they're coming in. They're veteran guys. They got a good presence about them. They're smart. They're high baseball IQ, strong, high character guys. They're fitting right into our culture.
And they'll hit the ball over the wall.
Yeah, sure, we'll take that.
I think you just answered it. Sears tomorrow, and then Darvish Tuesday. Is that the plan?
That's correct. We'll finalize it here shortly, but yeah, that seems to be the right order. Yes, sir.